The 2020 quarterback class was looked at as a great quarterback draft class. It contained a unanimous generational talent at the top and 3 other blue-chip prospects to make 4 QBs taken inside the first round. Even outside the first round, there is one player who's already looked at as a top QB in today's NFL. The top 5 taken in this draft are all starters in the NFL, so they will highlight this video, but I will still mention the remaining quarterbacks as well. This class contains some of the most exciting QBs in today's NFL, and in today's video we are going to take a look at all 13 and see how their careers have translated so far. This video is brought to you by SeatGeek. Use the promo code PUNCHTHEAIR to receive $20 off your first order, but without further ado guys, let's hop right into the video. The first quarterback taken off the board in the 2020 quarterback class was Joe Burrow, going first overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. Burrow was the clear unanimous 1 pick coming into this draft, and one of the better quarterback prospects that we have seen in recent years. He led LSU to a national championship and one of the most dominant seasons we have ever seen from a college player. Andy Dalton was clearly not playing starting material as last year in Cincy, and although 2019 wasn't pretty, it made it worthwhile by getting their guy in Burrow. Burrow was immediately named the starter after being the first pick, and while Cincy had their QB, the rest of the roster was still pretty bad. Burrow played great his rookie year and broke a few records. In Week 2, Burrow broke a record for the most completions by a rookie in a single game, although it did result in a loss. In Week 7, he also became the first rookie in NFL history to put up at least 400 passing yards, 3 passing TDs, and a rushing TD in a single game. Although Burrow was putting up dynamite numbers, Cincinnati was still losing. And in Week 11 against the Washington football team, Burrow tore his ACL and MCL, which put him on the IR for the remainder of the season. After a 4-11-1 season, the Bengals were back inside the top 5 in the 2021 draft. Many analysts felt they should have drafted an offensive lineman, as Burrow had no help there. But ultimately, they decided to grab Burrow's former LSU teammate, Ja'Marr Chase. Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow became one of the best quarterback-receiver duos in the entire league, and this move gave the Bengals an identity. After winning Comeback Player of the Year, Burrow got Cincinnati in the playoffs with a 10-6 record. A huge jump considering where they were before Burrow, and still with the roster not being top tier. No one thought Cincy was a legit Super Bowl contender heading into these playoffs. But one thing you can never do is count out Joe Shiesty. The Bengals took care of business in the wildcard round against the Raiders, winning 26-19, and went on to beat a fraud 1-seed Tennessee Titans team 19-16 in the divisional round to advance to the AFC Championship. And this is when the real test came, when the Bengals had to visit Arrowhead Stadium to play against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. The Chiefs jumped out to a 21-3 lead, and the Bengals' season looked to be over. But Joe Burrow used his magic and came back to win 27-24 in overtime to knock off the favorites. The 18-point comeback was tied with the Colts in 2006 for the largest comeback in a conference championship. This win put the Bengals in the Super Bowl against the LA Rams, which they ultimately lost 23-20. This was a truly magical season that put Joe Burrow and the Bengals on the map as contenders for the foreseeable future. The Bengals went out to address the offensive line in the offseason, as it was the clear weak link to a great offense. The move helped, and Burrow took care of business in 2022 and led the Bengals to a division crown to go along with a 12-4 record. No one looked down on the Bengals at this point. They were true contenders. The Bengals went on to beat the Ravens in the wildcard round and the Bills in the divisional round to advance to another AFC championship to meet up with the Kansas City Chiefs. Burrow and the Bengals lost this game 23-20, which has started a great rivalry between the Chiefs and Bengals. Coming into 2023, Burrow suffered a right calf strain during training camp, and it showed early on in this season. Burrow struggled to begin the 2023 season, but his play picked up. Unfortunately, in Week 11, Burrow suffered a torn ligament in his right wrist, which has put him on IR for the remainder of the season. In my mind, the only quarterback I would take over Burrow is Patrick Mahomes. He has all the talent in the world and that clutch factor that you do not see in a lot of QBs. Let's wish him a speedy recovery. The second quarterback taken in the 2020 draft was Tua Tagovailoa, going to Miami at 5. Tua was seen in many eyes as the second best quarterback in this draft class after having a highly successful career at Bama. Miami was in a clear search for a QB after going 5-11 with Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm. Tua initially started the year as a backup behind Fitzpatrick. He saw his first start in Week 8 after the team's bye. His rookie year was a mixed bag. He did go 6-3, but only threw for 11 touchdowns as the Dolphins were led by an elite defense. Going into 2021, expectations were now higher for the Dolphins, and they seemed to be a team that should be in playoff contention. Miami did add Jalen Waddle, who was the team's offensive MVP, and broke Miami Dolphins' rookie receiving records. But we did not see a major improvement from Tua. His passer rating inched up to 90.1 from 87.1. His yards per attempt went to 6.8 from 6.3, as he just continued to rely on short passes. And many wondered if Tua was the guy. At this point, he did look like a limited quarterback, and many felt Miami chose the wrong quarterback as the guy picked after him was lighting the league on fire. Ultimately, Miami fell short of the playoffs once again. The front office felt there needed to be major changes in 2022. They fired head coach Brian Flores and brought in the offensive guru Mike McDaniel from San Fran to help Tua develop into the quarterback he was supposed to be. They also traded for one of the best players in the NFL in Tyreek Hill. Although Miami was heavily scrutinized for firing Flores, it looked like the right move early on. In Week 2, Tua threw for a career-high 469 passing yards to go along with 6 touchdowns. The next week, Tua suffered an injury and briefly left the game, but eventually returned. After the game, the NFL suspected the Dolphins might have violated concussion protocols by letting Tua return to the game and launch an investigation. Tua started their next game and went down again, this time with head and neck injuries, and was rushed to the hospital. Ultimately, injuries did cut Tua's season short, although he did appear in 13 games going 8-5 and led the league in passer rating and passing average. Miami made the playoffs but fell short in the wild card round as Skylar Thompson was the team's starting quarterback. Although this season did not end like they wanted, they got reassurance. Miami clearly had the right coach leading this team, with Tua looking like a franchise quarterback for the first time in his career. And now in 2023, Tua is having his best season to date. He has managed to play in every game this year while leading the Dolphins to an 11-5 record to go along with 4,451 passing yards and 28 passing touchdowns. Now Miami is positioned to win the AFC East with a win over the Bills this week. Tua's career has had highs and lows, but as long as he can stay healthy, which is a big if, he should be positioned for success, playing with one of the top play callers in the league and the best wide receiver duo by his side. Justin Herbert was the third quarterback taken in the 2020 NFL Draft with a 6th overall pick to the LA Chargers. With Phillip Rivers on the back nine of his career, the Chargers finished 5-11, and like Miami, they were destined to select a quarterback in this draft. And ultimately, they found their guy in Herbert. Herbert was initially named the backup quarterback his rookie season behind veteran Tyrod Taylor, although it did not take long for him to get into action. After Taylor suffered a punctured lung, Herbert made his first start in Week 2. He had a good debut, finishing with 311 passing yards and 2 total TDs in a 23-20 overtime loss. Ultimately, the Chargers finished with a losing record in 2020, but none of that had to do with Herbert's play. Justin Herbert had one of the best rookie seasons we have seen from a quarterback ever. He was named the Offensive Rookie of the Year, threw for 4,336 yards, becoming only the 4th quarterback to achieve this feat, had 31 passing touchdowns, which broke an NFL record for the most by a rookie quarterback, and was ranked 56 by his fellow peers on the NFL Top 100 Players of 2021. Herbert in year 2 made an even bigger jump. He set franchise records with 5,014 passing yards and 38 passing touchdowns. Additionally, he surpassed Dan Marino's record for the most total touchdowns in an NFL quarterback's first 2 seasons. Going into the final week of the regular season, the Chargers were 9-7, and all they needed was a win or a tie versus the Raiders to advance to the playoffs. With the game tied up at 32 in overtime and 38 seconds left, it seemed like Las Vegas would just run out the clock to not risk a turnover. As we stated, both of these teams could tie and would both advance to the playoffs. But head coach Brandon Staley called a timeout, which then resulted in Las Vegas getting the first down and then kicking a game-winning field goal, which ended the Chargers' season. In 2022, the Chargers now were going all in. They signed big-time cornerback J.C. Jackson and traded for defensive end Khalil Mack to help a poor Brandon Staley-led defense. And although the Chargers' defense did not improve in 2022, Herbert and the offense played good enough to get them in the postseason after finishing 10-7. In Herbert's first playoff game, he finished with 273 yards and a touchdown. But the Chargers ended up losing a 31-30 game to the Jags after having a 27-0 lead, which was the 3rd largest blown lead in NFL playoff history. Fans and the media were now coming for Brandon Staley after another gigantic collapse. The Chargers seemed to need more help and brought the former Cowboy offensive coordinator Kellen Moore to help Herbert in the offense. You can make the argument Moore has helped the offense, but the season overall has been a disaster. Herbert suffered a broken finger in Week 14 and the Chargers fired Brandon Staley after one of the worst losses we have ever seen. Justin Herbert has put up electric numbers so far in his NFL career and looks to be a franchise guy. Staley has been one of the worst coaches in recent memory, and the Chargers defenses have done nothing to help out Herbert. Going forward, though, he has to have some playoff success with whatever coach they bring in. In my mind, he is one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. He has just had a terrible situation around him since being drafted. The last quarterback to go in the first round, the Green Bay Packers selected Jordan Love with the 26th overall pick. Many thought the Packers would use this pick to help out Aaron Rodgers, who was playing some of the best football of his legendary career. But ultimately, the Packers decided to do what they do best and put a promising quarterback prospect behind a legendary QB. The idea was to have Love absorb Rodgers' expertise and learn from one of the best. This move was heavily scrutinized by media and people around the league. Love sat his first 3 seasons behind Aaron Rodgers, and his one start in 2021 did not go well either. After the 2022 season, Rodgers left Green Bay to go play for the Jets, and this opened up the door for Love to finally start. Many thought Love was really a bust before he even played. He was honestly forgotten about in the eyes of many, considering he didn't play at all his first 3 years in the league. And through the first half of this season, it looked like Green Bay would probably be drafting another quarterback high in next year's draft. Love and the Packers did not look good. They started off 2-5 with Love not playing necessarily well. Many were already looking to move on with Love and call the season a wash. And although he didn't look good early on, you can't blame him for starting off slow. Love hadn't played consistent football in years. And just when it seemed to look like Love was in the bust category, he flipped the switch. Since week 8, Jordan Love has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. After the Packers looked dead in the water, Love has gone on an absolute heater. The Packers have gone 6-3 in their last 9 games, and Love currently has 3,843 passing yards, ranking 10th in the NFL, 30 passing TDs, ranking 3rd, and a 61.5 QBR, ranking 10th. With the win next week over the Bears, Love can get the Packers back in the playoffs and looks to be the quarterback for Green Bay for years to come. Our last quarterback that we're going to touch over heavily was the only one taken in the second round, and that was Jalen Hurts, who went to the Eagles with the 53rd pick. Unlike a few of the guys above, Hurts was drafted initially as a backup behind Carson Wentz. At the time, Philly was still confident in Wentz to be the guy leading their team. Hurts didn't see the field until week 13 his rookie year after Carson Wentz was benched due to his poor play. Hurts didn't play great in limited action his rookie year. Following the 2020 season, Philly traded Wentz to the Colts and fired head coach Doug Peterson. Philly brought in Nick Sirianni to pair with Hurts, who was named the new starting quarterback. The Eagles didn't have very high expectations in 2021, and no one really expected much from Hurts. And although he wasn't great passing the ball in 21, he led Philly to a postseason appearance with his legs. He led all quarterbacks in rushing yards and rushing TDs in the 2021 season. Like Tua getting help with Tyreek, Philly got Hurts some help by bringing in star wideout A.J. Brown. On paper, this Philly team was ready to win in 2022. It was just a matter if Hurts could take that next step. And it's safe to say he did take that next step and then some. Hurts finished the 2022 season with a 14-1 record, and his passing improved dramatically. He led Philly to the 1 seed in the NFC and reached the Super Bowl. Although Philly lost to the Chiefs 38-35, Hurts absolutely balled out. In the game, he threw for 304 yards, 1 passing TD, rushed for 70 yards to go along with 3 rushing TDs. The most rushing yards and rushing TDs by a quarterback in Super Bowl history. His play in 2022 landed him a 5-year, $255 million contract extension, making him at the time the highest paid player in NFL history. This season has been a bit of a mixed bag for Hurts and Philadelphia. After starting out 10-1, Philly has gone 1-4 in their last 5 and now have lost control of the NFC East. Hurts' play this year has dipped down from last year. Losing their OC and DC last year has definitely hurt Philly, and now many people are pointing fingers at Nick Sirianni for this decline. But regardless, Hurts has been great to this point in his career and has beyond exceeded expectations. I expect him to be the quarterback for the Eagles for years to come. The top 5 QBs taken in this draft receive all of the talk, and the remaining have all been career backups or out of the league. The rest of this crop includes Jacob Eason, who was the 122nd pick by the Colts, James Morgan, who was the 125th pick by the Jets, Jake Fromm, who was the 167th pick by the Bills, Jake Ludden, who was the 189th pick by the Jags, Cole McDonald, who was the 224th pick by the Titans, Ben DiNucci, who was the 231st pick by the Cowboys, Tommy Stevens, who went to the Saints at 240, and finally Nate Stanley, who was the 244th pick to the Vikings. This draft class is stacked at the top with 5 solidified young studs. All 5 are great in their own way, and each have had their own unique story to this point. Who do y'all think is the best quarterback in this class? Thanks for watching, guys. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if there's any other videos you want to see.